Ghibli trad daddy saved patricidal orphan boy from drugs and gay sex to impregnate his secret daughter to gain immortality.
All right.
Occult Disney 星に願いをかけよう Occult Disney チェノボンからジャパンまで Occult Disney 夏深った一ピノキオ Occult Disney 上のごとく下もまたシンデリー Occult Disney ショーをお楽しみください
Welcome to the Occult Disney podcast, where we explore all the seas of Earth and other fantastical worlds. Like Japan? I don't know. Japan's not a fantastical world for me. I live here. But we are back in Japan for films today. It is Studio Ghibli's Tales from Earthsea, distributed several years after its production by Disney in the States. This is Matt here. It's a paranoid American over there. How's it going?
I want to give a shot at something new. Maybe just this one episode. I don't know. But like a one-sentence summary of the movie, and maybe just for Ghibli movies. I'm going to do my absolute best for this one, just right up front, just to get all of the different key points out of the way. Ghibli trad daddy saved patricidal orphan boy from drugs and gay sex to impregnate his secret daughter to gain immortality.
All right. That's confusing, isn't it? Is that one of the issues with the movie? This one has like a weird reputation. It's kind of like it's directed by Goro Miyazaki, which is Hayao son, right? So the whole idea is a legacy thing, like, son, you shall take over my empire and I shall retire. And he just keeps screwing up. It's happened like twice now. Is
this movie known as a screw up?
This one, it made some money, like it was a financial success, but it was seen artistically as kind of a misfire. And Hayao Miyazaki went out and took a smoke break during his screening of the movie. So
really, I mean, I feel just so far detached from even knowing what you would look at and be like, oh, that wasn't very good, because all of this is painstakingly great animation in a technical sense, right?
People didn't complain about the animation. I think they didn't feel it had like the charm. And I'm coming in a little biased. I guess we don't get into pure fantasy much here, and I've not a pure fantasy guy. I need to be grounded in a little bit of something, you know? Like, I've never gotten into Lord of the Rings. It just seems too detached from everything. And this is one of those things where it's this pure fantasy. It's completely detached from any reality. So that's a bias for me coming into this. Like, I generally don't like this kind of thing.
Now, hear me out. This might be like the Japanese in you in a way, to like reject what I would consider classic European folklore. Like in like a broad sense, if you just took an amalgamation of all the different little specifics and just put one together, this kind of represent and it stood out because Ghibli, I was going in expecting, something that took place in a classical Japan that would seem foreign to me. And this one really does feel like a Lord of the Rings. It feels like a movie in a setting and some of the character styles that I might expect, even if it's drawn in an anime style. I felt like I was familiar with these characters. These guys were in the background of Robin Hood. They were in the background of a few other movies that I grew up watching. And now we're just seeing some side adventure. That was the vibe that I got from this movie. And the first thing I thought was, would the traditional Ghibli audience that would show up and be like, I love everything Ghibli puts out, and they show up and they go into this thing blind, are they happy to see this like European medieval sort of sorcery tale? And maybe not.
Hal kind of did that. Hal's Moving Castle was
kind of, but it had like the weird
steampunk, yeah.
Yeah, it had like an extra weird Japanese touch to it. This one felt way more straightforward, the same way that, if I forgive my horrible palate here, but like if I go into Ninja Scroll, and I'm not going to complain that the whole thing was all about ninjas, fighting or something. It's like this movie, I would go into it not expecting Howl's Castle and be totally fine with it. Whereas someone that is in love with Howl's Castle comes and watches this and expects more of the same. Maybe the bar is sort of limiting your own enjoyment of this movie being good.
That's what I'm saying. Just I even beyond that, it's just my aversion to fantasy. Like when I was a kid, when I was trying to start reading like more adult books, I tried to read a few fantasies. Who knows? Maybe I read one of the Ursula K. Le Guin's books at the time, the writer of one of the stories that inspired this. But yeah, it's that I couldn't get into those. I got into a few science fiction, and then I started like. Yeah, just fantasy has never done it for me. I've not seen all 3 Lord of the Rings movies. I've only seen the first one and half of the two. I've only seen one of the 2 towers. I haven't seen the second tower yet.
Probably get the idea though, right?
Yeah.
You get the idea. and honestly, I feel like I don't have a strong dog in this fight at all because as soon as I didn't have to read fiction out of school, I went directly to just reference and nonfiction. There was almost no desire for the longest time. I mean, I felt like conspiracy theories got to serve as my helping of fiction, like part of my like reading diet. So that kind of counted as the fiction, and then everything else is just straight up reference books.
That's pretty much how my reading is too.
Okay.
Occasionally, I will get into a glut of reading some sci-fi, which usually ends up being like trashy Star Trek books.
I feel like I miss out sometimes, and I try my best to go back and read some highly recommend fiction books and stuff. But it's like I'll get halfway into or even a quarter into like a sci-fi book and just dose out.
Yeah, and so I think our reading habits pretty similar in that, but obviously watching things is different. So most people love watching fantasy.
Watching is my reading. Yeah, watching is my version of reading fiction.
I watch the books.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but for me, I was looking at things. Why are there any other reasons why maybe this isn't as appealing as some of the other Ghiblis? One, I was thinking the devil in the details. The animation here is all really good, but something like Spirited Away, Totoro, there's so many weird little details, just things moving around. It feels more kinetic, where this one, while it looks good, doesn't feel as kinetic. That's one thing. And then like all of the morals or whatever they're trying to impart with this movie are said annoyingly directly, like they go on a minute speech about these are the morals of this movie, and they do it like 3 times. And by the last time I'm like eye rolling a little bit,
I have to, I'm glad that you actually mentioned it in that way, because as I was watching this for completely weird, unrelated reasons, I've been rewatching these old Bible tale animations from, I want to say the 80s. And I'm not saying that they have Ghibli artwork or that the Ghibli artwork in this movie is any way comparable, but they're both anime and they're both wearing the same damn outfits and they have got the same damn like black beards. So as I'm watching this movie, it was like, man, this is just a higher rendered version of these 80s Bible animations that I've seen plenty of times. So the direct morals almost felt like an elevated version of that in comparison. So I kind of gave it like points for that. I don't know, like maybe they didn't earn those points, but I gave them to them anyways.
Maybe you got to make a super cut where you interpolate scenes from this and that.
If anyone notices. Yeah. And actually I had like a note that I didn't even write down because I was like, oh no, I think that that's a stylistic choice. So maybe here's a good time to bring that up, is that whenever they show spoiler alert, these slave kids in the background of like this wagon that they're taking all these kidnapped children and throwing it into, like old school Franklin scandal. But like I noticed in one of the screens that, man, they all look the same in a way that in Ghibli usually everything is got so much variety in it. But then I was thinking, well, maybe that's because they're stylistically trying to show that once you get kidnapped, you are just like turned into some kind of a commodity that's interchangeable with anything else in your environment. And therefore the artwork was like repetitious and used, everyone had the same haircut, the same hair color, the same skin tone, the exact same. It looked like someone just took one character and pasted them like 20 or 30 different times in a few spots. But I was thinking that was intentional.
I could also see that's where Daddy takes a smoke break. But no, I get what you're saying, and I imagine, it's like, obviously he's got to be like, I got to make a little bit of my own style, right? So I have to break out of just the basic Ghibli thing.
If that you're trying to establish your style and showing the same color tones and stuff. I know that it felt like when I was watching it, ooh, this is something I could be critical of, but oh wait, maybe there's a reason that they did it this specific way. Like the images are conveying the same feel. But if this was the way to stand out from Daddy, I don't think that this is the way to do it.
His more recent film, which was actually more poorly received, is Ghibli's first CGI, which is Earwig and the Witch, and it looks kind of terrible. I'm looking at screenshots of it. I've not watched it. Maybe I'd love it, but
I'm not afraid of bad movies, man. Sometimes I find out and I'm shocked that some of the movies that I thought were like the best I've ever seen are so horribly rated. So I'll give you one example. There's one called Land of the Blind that has Donald Sutherland playing this kind of Trump-like character way before the Trump was on his political sort of arc here. But it was like one of those movies like, man, this movie is so good, I need to recommend it to everyone. And you go and look at the reviews and it's got like a 3 or a 4.
Yeah, mine for that, I'm going to check what the rating is. I've always felt that way about Masked and Anonymous. Have you seen that?
Masked Anonymous?
Masked and Anonymous.
Oh my God, it sounds like the worst documentary ever. What is it?
Oh, it's not. It's a weird...
It's a poorly named something else.
Yeah, hold on. I have to check. It's directed by not the guy that does Curb, but Larry Charles, the director of a lot of Seinfelds. Not Larry David. This is a different guy. And it's starring Bob Dylan, who doesn't try to act at all, but he's the star of the movie. 5.3, so maybe not as bad, but not well rated. But like, it just has everybody in it. The highlight of the movie is you have Jeff Bridges and John Goodman kind of like a year after The Big Lebowski, but Jeff Bridges is now like the opposite. The dude, he's not chill about anything, man, but he's still kind of talking the same, and he still kind of looks like the
he's
dude.
Coming off the tail end of it.
Yeah, and then he murders John Goodman. Spoiler alert. There's like 30 characters, and so it's one of those movies everybody's in. Jessica Lange's in there. Who else is in there? Off the top of my head. Anyway, I recommend it. That's my bad movie to recommend for everyone.
The point being that I don't care what the critics thought of this movie. I gave it just as much, I guess, merit. At the end of it, I felt just as satisfied as some of the other ones. Although House Castle has so many iconic, weird little quirky things that just etch into your brain the second you see it. You're like, these weird little dust demons, or like Totoro, the cat thing, right? That thing just sent in Cat Bus. This movie doesn't really have a lot of those. This one has motifs and story plots, but it's like kid fixes fence, gets in fight with wolves and bad guys, and it's very mundane compared to anything else I've seen Ghibli, but I also like seeing that.
If this were a Final Fantasy game, I would probably quite enjoy playing it. That's kind of how I felt watching it. And I guess you would be Sparrowhawk in the JRPG version. I don't know. I don't think you'd be the kid. I don't think you'd be Aaron. But then Sparrowhawk just disappears for long periods of time too. So maybe not. I don't know.
No, he's got to go on the side quests. I think you would be Sparrowhawk.
You'd be side questing.
Yeah, and Aaron the kid is just the kid that runs up to you when you get to town and like gives you some kind of bad information, right?
Yeah. So
or kills you.
And by the way, I want to be playing like this in 90s Final Fantasy form, like on my Nintendo DS. That's the version I would be playing, just to throw out there.
I'm a purist, Final Fantasy 7 and above.
Okay. I've even played more Dragon Quest, but I think this is probably a little too dark for a Dragon Quest.
Well, yeah, just blobs. We're just going to attack blobs in that case.
Yeah, right. Now, this is another Black Goo movie, so this does go into the Black Goo genre, because first Aaron has the dream about the Black Goo, and then later it becomes a real thing with Cobb, right? So,
speaking of Cobb, I feel like we just need to jump right into the feminine qualities of Cobb and how that's typically discussed or perceived.
I didn't realize Cobb was male until 75% through the movie, I think.
Oh, okay. I mean, didn't you put it together the second you heard Cobb's name, or like Cobb talking?
I just thought that was a weird one. No, I've been you know what I thought of, and it's in my notes in the car recently. I've been listening to a lot of Mitch Hedberg, where he's like talking about corn on the cob, or if it's off the cob, and the punchline somehow I'm saying people call me Mitch altogether, so my note is just Cobb altogether. I was too busy thinking about that to catch the signs, I guess.
I thought that was probably the biggest underlying motif of the entire movie was the conflict between Sparrowhawk and Cobb. That seems obvious, and then directing the future of potentially the world, that like the energy that's left in this entire kingdom is either going to go the Sparrowhawk way, it's going to go the Cobb way, and Cobb makes some convincing arguments, and I wasn't even sure if he was lying the entire time or he's just a slimy dude that happens to convey the truth in very harsh ways.
My way or the Cobb way.
That's the new bumper sticker.
That is one thing with this film, though. We've noticed in a lot of the other Ghiblis how everybody's in a gray area, which is not the case in this. You know, I don't think. Well, you did mention Cobb has a few good points, so you could call that some gray
Cobb
area.
has good points, and I'd argue Sparrowhawk has a few maybe like chinks in his armor in a way, because he's got what I assume is like a bastardized daughter. What's the bastard version of a daughter? But he's got a daughter that he abandoned and doesn't necessarily claim, and she's clearly got daddy issues to make up for it, even though he's somewhat in her life, but doesn't want to recognize any of this. Also, when Aaron gets kidnapped by these traffickers, he goes and saves Aaron, and he takes Aaron under his wing and he brings him to the forest. And Aaron's like, what about the rest of the slaves that, you know, I was with? And he's like, oh, I unlocked their handcuffs. Like they got it from here. But Aaron didn't have it from there. Aaron needed someone to escort him through the forest and hunt and bring him to shelter, and a little family that had like a fire burning and a whole setup, right? Fence, everything. Like what are we really expecting to happen to this collection of slave kids that they just unlocked their handcuffs in the middle of the forest? And it's like, all right, have at it, guys. That it almost reflected this weird, either he's like really naive or he also was kind of cruel in some way. Imagine you're the guy that was handcuffed to Aaron and you see Sparrowhawk come in and take Aaron away. And he's like, you guys got it from here. I would almost feel like Sparrowhawk is my Cobb, right? Like you convince me to go and kill a Cobb now.
Well, I'll give you two parallels. One, you're mentioning how she's the disowned daughter or whatever, and I was like, well, it's kind of the opposite of Ponyo, isn't it? Where daddy also is like in that weird gray area, but is really looking for her in Ponyo, right? So kind of a different vibe there.
Right, and this one, like they live in the same house and they just don't acknowledge, even though everybody knows this. Like I knew. The mom knew, the dad knew, the daughter knew. Everybody knows that it's his daughter. I assume. Am I reading too much into that? But no one says it.
Right. The other one I wanted to respond to is from one of my other podcasts. I just rewatched Django Unchained, where Django does the same thing. He just unlocks the guys and rides off on the horse, murders the slavers, and rides off on a horse. So
right, but in that case, Django is sort of like a Robin Hood, where he uses an acceptable amount of violence to fight other types of violence. In this case, if it's Sparrowhawk versus Cobb, maybe, I mean, they're both gray. I guess that's the ultimate point, is that they definitely both have these wide gray areas, even though they represent a light and dark archetype. There's lots of dark little shadows trailing around Sparrowhawk constantly. Like even his name refers to like a pretty brutal sort of predatory act, right?
Yeah, and I mean, let's be real. Part of the thing with this movie was dad kneecapping it. Let's look at some of his response here. Other responses. Okay, I'm now reading from Wiki. These during a screening of the film, Goro's father, Hayao Miyazaki, walked out for a smoke break, commenting, "You shouldn't make a picture based on your emotions." When asked his thoughts, he said, "I was looking at my kid. He's not an adult yet. That is all." He later wrote a message for his son. "It was made honestly, so it was good." Le Guin, the author of the Earthsea book, she liked the movie, but was like, "Yeah, that's not my story."
Well, I mean, you wouldn't expect your story to come directly out of the end of Ghibli, would you?
Yeah, but it's named after the book. It has the characters from the book or not? I can't.
I don't know. maybe
I haven't read Tales from Earthsea. Anyway, the author did like the movie is the point, while also noting that she didn't feel responsible for the story at all.
You know, I would assume then that his son probably related more to the girl in this movie, like not Aaron, but what was her name? Taryn?
I can have that for you in a second.
Teru, Tartaria.
Teru. But then she has the second name, right? Everyone has a second name in this. Like,
don't say it. Don't say it.
I won't say it. I'm not saying it. The world ends if I say it. Okay. I wrote Lebanon in my notes, like the country, because I kept hearing that.
Lebanon? Okay, I didn't. I actually, this was one that I watched entirely in English, along with English subtitles, which did not match. So I got sort of two different interpretations of every line that was delivered. So I kind of took notes on the best of those two.
Okay. I don't think the names change. That's a question mark. I think they have the same names in both. Yeah. I mean, it's Cobb in Japanese. It's Prince Aaron and English, so I think it works out, yeah. But where was I going with that? I don't remember.
Well, you were just confirming that her name is Tartaria, I believe.
That would have been fun. Theru. There's too many R's and yeah, all these harsh sounds that nobody wants to do. Make smooth names. What happened to the nice sounding names?
And there's also this weird thing that immediately reminded me of Ready Player One. If you've seen the movie, I don't know if you've read the book.
She's horrible now.
This is one sci-fi movie or a book that I did read, but Ready Player One. But in the movie, yeah, exactly what you're talking about. Olivia Cook plays Artemis, and everyone's like, "Oh my god! Like, don't even make direct eye contact. She's a monster." And in this movie, it's the same thing. So and then the hot girl just has like a little bit of makeup, and then bam.
Have you seen Zoolander 2?
I'm sure I have. They're both about MK Ultra, so it's natural that I don't remember either of them.
Oh, right. They even have the scene in the first one, yeah. But Owen Wilson's Hansel, the first half of the movie, he's wearing like this gold mask on one half of his face because he's been disfigured. And at some point in the movie, the mask comes off and he's got like this real tiny scar on his cheek. So
I'm glad to see that was. I mean, this isn't Zoolander 2. This is Ghibli, and they kind of do the exact same thing, right? I mean, they clearly have the capability to have made her look grotesque if they wanted to. I've seen them do it a million times, you know.
Yeah, Zoolander 2 does not fit into my unpopular theory that comedy sequels are better than the originals. By the way, Zoolander 1 definitely the better one.
I wouldn't. I mean, I feel like you should watch them both together and not try and separate them.
Oh yeah, that works. I don't know. There is like a gap between the two. So
what about the Happy Gilmore sequel coming out?
That's not out yet. Who knows what the deal is with that? You know,
right? But that would fall into your formula, right?
Well, I should hope it's good then. Yes.
Okay. Not just good, but better.
Better in my mind, but I also think Wayne's World 2 is better than Wayne's World 1. Like I said, it's an unpopular theory.
That's the concert one, right?
Yeah, I'm the only person that thinks this, I believe.
I could be persuaded. I don't know. Like, is it a Monday or a Tuesday kind of thing?
Yeah. Beverly Hillbillies, that movie sucked. No, Brady Bunch sequel was better, I think. I think most people say Addams Family sequel is better. I think most people say that. I kind of like Anchorman 2 better, and I think I might be the only person that thinks that. So yeah. Well,
we got into this whole tangent because we were talking about Don't Say Something's True Name, and you just mentioned Brady Bunch, I think. And that was one of the things that ironically was coming to mind as they say, like, don't say, someone's true name. So one of the major premises of this entire movie is that everything on the planet has a true name, from the waves to the wind to Matt to me. We all have like a true name. And if someone else says your true name, then they're sort of commanding your power. They take over you somehow, or they have control over you. And that back in the day, people used to know the true name of the water and the true name of the wind, and therefore had power over it. Then that was essentially all magic is knowing something's true name. So if you just say it out loud. So when I think about Brady Bunch, I was like, when she's just going Marsha, 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 is that her literally like vampiring out, the energy from Marsha because that's her name?
Yeah, yeah. Or you know, you're walking down the street, you hear Seals and Crofts' Summer Breeze, and then you shoot a politician, you know?
Okay, that's another MK Ultra reference. I was also thinking Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice seems to follow this exact same premise, the same thing as what's the one where you look in the mirror and you
Bloody
have
Mary, I was about to bring
Bloody
that up.
Mary, like all of like those all imply the exact same dynamic here. That, for example, Bloody Mary somehow got elevated to her real name, and that's her real name. And if you say it even hundreds of years after she's dead in a mirror, then somehow you're tapping into that energy. And that is exactly where they start this entire movie out with, is that, oh my God, they're lost at sea. There's choppy waves. And this guy's like, oh my God, I just forgot the name of the waves and the name of the winds. And we're screwed now. And these dragons fight each other. And a bloody dragon falls down to the earth. And everyone's like, oh my God, dragons exist. And then the credits kind of start to open up. I just thought that was awesome. But I could see maybe a Ghibli snob not thinking it was as awesome.
I mean, one of the problems here is if Walt Disney's son had started making movies in the 60s, and then Walt Disney publicly was like, this movie's kind of crap, that would kind of color the whole thing, right? Like, you know, Daddy did give his son a bit of a kneecap here, but I do see where like all the Ghibli pieces are here, but I do feel a little more like in Crayon, like in Spirited Away, the weird rules of the bathhouse you kind of have to work out. These are just kind of laid down. If you know the true name, you can control, right? It's very like broad stroke.
And they deliver that rule in literally the first 10 seconds of the movie. Like you don't even have to sort of work at that. It's just given to you direct. And I think what makes this movie extra interesting is the familial conflict going on in the actual production of it, because it's not like it's a movie after he had already had some kind of a conflict with dad. It, like, you can see it throughout this movie. For example, if he's represented by Tartaria or whoever the girl's name, Tara, if that's the son, right, the actual Miyazaki's son working through this, and Sparrowhawk is Miyazaki, then Sparrowhawk's just like refusing to acknowledge any association or like any kind of support in the way that everyone else knows that you're connected.
That's absolutely how this movie came about. It was in the cooker for some time. I think Disney showed interest in doing Earthsea. Eventually, Miyazaki had shown some interest in it, like in the late 90s or whatever, right? Hayao Miyazaki said he didn't have the fire in the belly for animating Earthsea. So he basically promised, I'll be in charge of the script. I'll make sure the script is fine. And then my son's going to do it, which I guess he did do the script, but he also like was not on speaking terms with his son while he was making this film. So they were not actually conferring with each other, apparently, while making this film. I don't even know what the spat was at that time, but it seems like he really was not, remained on non-speaking terms from the duration of the project. So he kind of like washed his hands of it. The other weird thing, though, is it's also based sort of on a story by Daddy Miyazaki called Shunta's Journey, which is from the 80s, I believe, 1983. So I think the details of the actual story kind of come from this Miyazaki manga from the early 80s, which is maybe one of the reasons that Le Guin was like, yeah, that's not my story, because it literally is not.
What? And speaking of, even though Miyazaki, I'm sorry, I don't know the first name, so I'm just going to refer to Daddy
and Son. He's fine.
So, and I'll just shorten it to Daddy and Son. I won't even say Miyazaki anymore. So, so Son is working on this movie. Dad and Son decide not to talk to each other as they're working on this movie. And that represents literally what's happening between Sparrowhawk and Tartaria or Terran in this movie. But outside of that, the main protagonist of the movie is actually the prince of a king that kills his own dad and then runs away and never speaks of it again. So there's like some very deep themes here. Like, I can see both sides of this family sort of coming out in what you're describing as what's going on behind the scenes. And let me just say, let's not put it beyond Ghibli, though, that maybe we weren't seeing a conflict that they were going through in this movie. Maybe they went through the conflict in order to bring us this movie.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where I'm like, is the behind the scenes actually more interesting here? And it could be part approach, which this is appealing to you more. So let's say Ponyo's like growing a garden, right? You know, this movie, the Ghibli's going, that's a garden. Whereas Goro's going for like a race car driver. You know, he's getting in an F1 and doing a few laps. You know, you can be successful at it too, but it's a different thing.
I've given this a lot of thought, right? Because my mind is still kind of blown from movies like Ponyo. I'm admitted, like I've just barely started dipping my toe into Ghibli in general, but anime even more so, right? And I feel that there is a certain saturation point. Like if I made it my life's mission to just watch nothing but anime for the next 20 years, maybe you can correct me here, but I feel like I could be so saturated with surreal, quirky, weird, unexpected things that I see Ponyo and get a little bit lost in the sauce. Like, okay, yeah, cool. It's another weird movie about like a fish baby girl that grows into a human and no one talks about it. And that's normal. And kids are inside of waves and they turn into fish and all that. And that's normal because every other movie that I've seen over this course of 10 or 20 years also have like weird nonsensical kind of rules to it. So when I watch this movie, right, Tales from Earthsea, it's the opposite for me. Like I've seen plenty of movies like it and I feel like it holds up in that. But whereas I don't have a frame of reference, if I see Ponyo right now, it's fascinating because it's so novel. But I would imagine someone that's been watching, nothing but anime for like their entire life, is Ponyo still as magical and surreal? And if so, what is it that makes Ponyo so different, which represents what this movie's missing in some kind of like qualitative way?
It might be that Sunny is basically, adapting more Western things. Akira Kurosawa, I mean, very well respected in Japan, of course, probably more respected in America. He made Seven Samurai, Yojimbo, all that sort of stuff. All the Throne of Blood, all the primetime samurai movies. His style is heavily influenced by John Ford, the guy who made all the Westerns in Hollywood, right? So for Japanese, that's a little bit off-putting. Everyone knows those movies are good, but they sometimes prefer the like quieter directing styles of some of the Japanese directors, the more impressionistic ones, right? So when you're in the Ghibli thing, you expect extremely impressionistic, and this is imaginative, but it's a little more on the nose. Like the rules are clear, the morals are clear, they're stated on screen multiple times. So that could be more appealing to a Western audience where, a Pixar movie usually lays out all the rules as quick as it can. So then it can play with its toys literally and figuratively,
We're butting up against my MK Ultra programming because I feel that even though you're not supposed to like to have everything spoon fed, sometimes it is nice. Like there's a warm feeling about having literally the movie opens up and it's like, oh my God, I'm lost at sea now because I used to be magic and I just forgot the name of the water. And if I knew the true name of water, then I wouldn't be in this pickle. And then the movie starts. Like I kind of like it being spelt out in a way that like that's all I've consumed for so much of my media consumption that it does it well. It fits that formula well. Whereas I can't really figure out how Ponyo does it well. I know it does it well because it's a fascinating thing to watch, just the same way that Howl's Castle is a fascinating thing to watch.
I mean, if you secretly just said this movie's from France, I think everyone would love it, right? This movie's from France. It's a French thing. You trick people with a French dub or something, and then they'd be like, oh, this is a masterpiece. Because they, like you're saying, there is a lot of cultural baggage. The branding of this movie carries a lot of baggage. Same with a Pixar. When a Pixar movie that doesn't seem to fit the Pixar branding can be off-putting, even if it's good.
I think you just offered a perfect solution. We should float this up the chain and just let son Miyazaki know that the next movie he puts out, put it out through France. Make a new shell company in France and make it seem like it was all made by some sort of refugee team, right, of different countries that all fled to France and the government paid for them to make this masterpiece. And bam, it wins every award made for animation. And then he can come out and take the gold mask off or shift it to the side or whatever and be like, it was me all along. And then Daddy appreciates them.
Right. That would be a thing. But yeah, he's supposed to tend to daddy's garden, and he wants to drive an F1 car. So,
and again, in this movie, they ruin this garden, right? The kid ruins the garden, and he has to go back and kind of fix it and sort of like help mend the fence.
Like, I do like the meta of this movie a lot. It's just like, I'm not going to rewatch this one like I do rewatch other Ghiblis sometimes, and I'm not a heavy anime viewer, by the way. I live in Japan, but I don't know like a ton of anime. Sometimes I have to ask my daughter, do you know what this is? Because she's much more, she's 15, she's up on the anime, she knows what's up with all that.
I would hope so. I almost feel like there would be something wrong if not.
Yeah, she's got a big box of anime DVDs that we got from the Blu-ray apocalypse, that sort of thing. So, but I don't watch that much.
Let me ask you: are there any widely known animes that have this kind of a theme, like a European Western style theme, that do phenomenally well?
This in the late 70s, there was a Heidi anime. Heidi of the mountains, of the hills, or whatever that is. This
one was the example that you have.
That's still popular today in Japan. So that would be.
Okay. I guess that is technically Western. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a fantasy, but this. Earthsea is in Earthsea. It's not in the West, is it? Heidi's in the West.
Heidi a Nazi or something? I don't remember. She was neutral.
It doesn't look appealing for me to watch that, so I haven't. But they'll still have the character like Heidi and the grandpa or whatever. Like they'll show up in like commercials and stuff, like even now. So
that's a real for what? What exactly is Heidi selling to people?
I don't know, like energy drinks or something.
Okay, yeah, I guess that's
insurance. It's like really mundane stuff. Japan is weird. Like Mao-chan, she was an Olympic figure skater like 15 years ago. She doesn't act, she doesn't make music, but she still shows up in commercials like all the time. She's just like still in every commercial.
I get that though. I get, because that it represent, even if you've never done anything, that you represent the apex of something, and that's rare for someone to actually connect with whatever it is that they can do better than almost anyone else in the entire world. Most people realize what that is far too late, or like they just don't have the technical skills to pull it off. So I don't know. I think that kind of a weird fluke. That's why, I'll still eat Wheaties if they got Larry Bird on the cover, even though everyone tells me they've expired and they're probably not healthy for you to continue eating. But I feel like that type of legacy doesn't. Yeah, but that kind of legacy doesn't. Same reason I still eat Wade Boggs chewing gum, even though the doctors tell me to stop.
This is funny. Shohei Ohtani, the baseball player, there were some exhibition games in early March in Japan. So he came back to Japan for like a week to play these games. And suddenly he's in every advertisement on every machine and every billboard in Japan. It just seems while he was here, when he wasn't playing baseball, they were like making him do every advertisement possible.
Do you think maybe baseball is the biggest Western sort of infiltration of Japanese culture?
Of any kind?
Of any kind.
It's a contender. I'm sitting here thinking if anything else.
Because we've even seen one or two animes at this point that feature baseball in them. Like it is part of the culture that if you grew up in Japan and no one ever told you what came from the West, or even mentioned what the West was, you'd probably assume that baseball was part of Japanese culture because of how popular it is, no?
Yeah, it is. It is. I'm sitting here trying to think of if there's anything from Western culture that would be bigger than that.
So let's just not talk about any wars. We're talking just fun cultural stuff here.
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying. I'm just thinking if there's anything else. McDonald's has infiltrated pretty well. 7-Eleven, but 7-Eleven has become a Japanese company. The Canadians tried to buy it a few months ago. The
7-Eleven that you get, right? We wish that was it. Dude, the difference between the 7-Eleven in the States versus the 7-Eleven in Japan is literally like whether or not you're going to the police station with handcuffs behind your back.
Yeah. Well, Disney itself, right? Tokyo Disney was built in part to basically be like, well, if people can't afford to fly to the States, it's kind of like they're visiting America when they go to Tokyo Disneyland, right?
Speaking of Disney, this is the Occult Disney podcast, by the way. Not the Ghibli.
That's it felt very on the nose. So
I'm just wondering, and just in a most bumpkin way, even knowing that I was the one that worked at Disney, I'm just curious, when we say Studio Ghibli is distributed by Disney, was there other contenders? Was there a bidding and Disney just happened to say we can get you in more stores at a better price point and yada yada? Or was there like an intentional blending of these two? And we've already talked about some conflicts with like Weinstein where he wants to make edits and they're like blah blah blah. But I just wonder, was there synergy in this, or was it just 100% a business move by Studio Ghibli?
Business move because other studios had already dropped the ball. Disney didn't start distributing these films till the late 90s. Things like Totoro had already been released in America. I think it was Fox, Warner Brothers or Fox, or maybe both, and they'd put them on home video. They made really bad dubs. Disney did a much better dub of Totoro, which is probably the one you saw, because the early one's pretty rough. So there had been like home video releases by Warner or whatever that didn't really get much traction. So it was another case where Disney might have, dropped the ball again, and it just happened to catch a little more fire because they had a better marketing plan, I guess.
Okay, fair point. I mean, because I'm still trying to understand too, like right now, what kind of ownership does Disney feel over these Ghibli movies in 2025, right? Is there some exec at Disney that's like, yeah, we kind of did that?
I think it's probably we kind of did that, because even here's it's not even all the Ghiblis. The only Ghiblis that Disney was actually involved with, Totoro they did on home video, but not theatrical, right? It's just the ones we've done: Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle, Ponyo. This one, there's going to be 2 more that they distributed. One is an actual Miyazaki, and one is another Ghibli. So if
another Ghibli comes out this year, does Disney end up distributing it into the West?
No, they don't currently have the deal. The Boy and the Heron was, I don't remember who distributed that in the States, but it was not Disney. So the ball kind of gets punted around with Ghibli in the States.
Interesting. I wonder why there's just not a Ghibli in the States. Are they not? I mean, if there's a Disney in the States and there's a Disney in damn near every other country, right? So how come there's not a Ghibli, at least in the States?
Well, I think I mentioned here before, the Tokyo Disney is not owned or operated by Disney. It's owned or operated by the Oriental Land Company. In the 60s, they started building man-made islands in Tokyo, and they were finding things to have people go to them. So it took a while for them to make the deal. Like it took them like 10 years to convince American Disney to let them build the park. They made a deal which made it seem like the Japanese were going to get screwed on it, but then the park became so successful that they're just making gangbusters. Even now, the expansions that they keep doing to these parks are like nuts. Oh, by the way, they just announced that they are going to build an Up ride. We were joking how Up didn't get a ride a few weeks ago. They're going to take out the Jungle Cruise and put in an Up ride.
Tokyo Disney is?
Yeah.
Okay, now I feel like a trip is going to be in order at some point, because
wait until 2030 if you want that.
There's too many things going on. I have to wait until 2030. I can do that. We can plan for 5 years.
I assume they're going to shut. They're opening New Space Mountain in 2027, so I assume that's when they're going to shut down Adventureland and redo it. Because right now Tomorrowland's kind of a nothing at the moment. So
I'll be almost 50. Whatever. Let's do it.
Yeah. I mean, now it's fun. See, I've been several times recently. I'm like. And I'm wondering, maybe this is the last time it really resembles like 80s Magic Kingdom, because they're about to make so many changes. Maybe that's why I've been there a lot recently. I'm like, oh, this is the last time to snatch away a bit of my childhood before they change it here. In Florida, they're ripping out the rivers of America and stuff. They're, really starting to change these parks for whatever reason.
Yeah, honestly, it's been such a slow burn though, that if you went to the park in the 90s or even in the early 2000s, it's like it's a completely different place now. Even if all the rides are the same or most of them similar, the whole magic is just not the same.
Okay, Tokyo still mostly feels like 1985.
You're selling it. These are all selling points, yeah.
But they're about to change Adventureland. It's going to be, and Tomorrowland is changing now. So, but yeah, that's for me. It's part of the charm of going there. Is just like, oh wow, this is super nostalgic. Snow White Scary Adventures is still scary. That's the Queen's. It's all, there's no music. It's all screaming. The Queen just jumps out at you like 5 times. Yeah. So I heard, I think I mentioned here that I wrote it, and then I heard a kid say, "That was lame. Why did you even take me on that?" Which was great, because it's this janky old dark ride that's just an old lady screaming at you for 80% of it.
I think for older people, it just triggers a different trauma response from younger kids. Like their
Right.
trauma response would be like, you get on a ride and like we're gonna take your phone away. Like, oh my god, like that's sort of the equivalent. Like they would have a similar trauma response for different reasons.
There's Pinocchio's Daring Adventure. I don't remember that one. It starts off with a really happy scene of Pinocchio singing and dancing on stage. Car turns left. I think it turns right in California, and then the rest of the ride is just nightmare fuel.
I'm in. I love all
Stromboli screaming at you and trying to trap you. Then it's Pleasure Island, and then it's off to the salt mines and all that, and it ends in a room of clocks, and you have to sit in the room of clocks because the car in front of you is unloading.
Ultimately, if you go to any theme park, most of the like the quote unquote rides, right? There's the baby rides and there's the adult rides, and the adult rides tend to fall on a scale that at the top of it are like roller coasters that make some people like nervous to even go on, right? But on that whole entire scale, everything that gives you a thrill, in my opinion, are all things that are designed to make your body think it's going to die. Even if you go on a Harry Potter ride and like a burst of fire blasts out and it's close enough that you can feel it, like the reason that that's fun is because you're telling your body and like some mammalian like primate version of it, like you're about to die, like this fire's coming at you, you're going to die. You're on a roller coaster. This isn't normal. You're flying up into the air. Every other one of your relatives going back hundreds of thousands, depending on what your beliefs are of years, right, are all saying like you are going to die from this experience. So you start to kind of like touch God a little bit, right? And then we come back down because the technology that we're using, like the fire doesn't actually burn you, and the roller coaster is made to be super safe and all this, even to the point of the old witch jumps out of the forest. Like if an old witch jumped out of the forest at you, and this is the year 1600, you actually are going to die probably. So I think that all of these, and the point being, that's the entire point. Every one of the rides that's fun, any ride that's fun, I think deep down it's because you just told yourself you were going to die and then you survived it, and there's like a crazy dopamine serotonin release just because of it.
Okay. Except for some boat rides, I rode the Rapunzel ride. We'll talk about that more next week. And that one is just like a gentle float through a few rooms of animatronics and stuff, right? There's nothing.
Right. Well, I said there's baby rides and there's adult ride. That was
okay.
Baby ride. That's like the kids are restless. Mm-hmm. We just gave them some lunch. Now let's like get them sleepy so we can just cart them through the park.
How do we get there? Oh, because I went to the park. That's why. But yeah. So Disney itself, that Disney and baseball are probably the most infiltrating things. Even McDonald's, like you got to look a little bit for a McDonald's. They're not on every corner. 7-Elevens are, but not the McDonald's.
One of the fun ones to play with, I think, is like dragons. Like dragons seem really interesting. And mind you, this is going back into this movie because it starts out with these two dragons that are usually not seen in this part of the world, right? They're like, we never see dragons in the east or the west or whatever side of the world they were talking about. And that this is like this big, but dragons themselves are one of these archetypes that seem to have spontaneously came up in a lot of different cultures and region, which is why some people I talk to are like, I believe in dragons, but I think dinosaurs are fake. even though if they're like, well, there's never been any really good fossil record, like, okay, let's talk about dragons now. But some people just seem to give credibility in dragons because the East and the West both had their own versions that were apparently not influenced by each other.
Well, you look at the poster of this one, big ass dragon. And I would say the poster for this has always like, intrigued me about the movie. It's got a great theatrical poster if you haven't seen it.
You don't really see a lot of dragon though beyond that opening scene.
Yeah, maybe that's disappointing. You expect maybe people expected dragons when I saw this. They come back a bit at the end, right? How much dragon can you really put in a movie though, I mean, really? Unless they make a Figment movie or something.
I mean, you saw Game of Thrones, right?
Actually, I didn't. I told you I'm not a fantasy guy. One that I did really like, the Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves movie. Is
that the one with Marlon Wayans?
No, that I did watch that one recently too.
That's got to be one of the worst, right?
But well, you could watch this on YouTube. The scenes of what's his name, villain Die Hard 3. Oh God, I can't remember his name.
Samuel L. Jackson?
No, the villain, the bad guy, the Euro trash guy.
Yeah. That guy.
It's really annoying. I can't remember his name. It's going to come to me. But anyway, he's just screaming gibberish as a wizard, and it's fantastic. Like when he's screaming gibberish to the wizard, the movie becomes great. Anyway, the newer one, that's Hugh Grant, Chris Pine. I mean, it's snarky, it's funny, right? So that ties me in a little bit. Maybe the sensibilities of the people feel kind of like modern. Here we go. The secret sauce of that movie is like all of the characters feel like they're people out of Dungeons and Dragons, people playing, like acting the character out, right? There's a weird disconnect with all the characters in that movie. So now I can think it's just people around a table playing this weird game, you know? Whereas usually in fantasies, like in this one, everyone is very self-serious.
Yeah, I would definitely say that this movie is one of the most serious Ghibli movies I've seen so far. And great we didn't do Great with the Fireflies, right?
Not for this one. I mean, we can do it at some point, but yeah, that one is pretty hardcore. So
that one again was not distributed by. They decided not to package that with Totoro.
No, Disney never. But I think we mentioned in Totoro the original screening. They were packaged together in the theater, so you would watch them back to back in the theater when they were first released.
So this does seem like the most serious Ghibli Disney movie to date.
Well, I was definitely thinking of Mononoke, and that's another one where this one kind of doesn't, like, kind of pales because it's got the same like balance of nature ideas, right? But Mononoke just has so much more going on.
Oh my God, yeah. To compare those two, I can see why Dad would go out for a smoke break now. Now I get it.
Yeah, I feel like that's
what I needed.
That's the thing with this movie. I think if you do take it on, if it's divorced from its background, it's a pretty good movie. But if you compare this to Mononoke, it's not, you got nothing, you know? Again, if it was out of France, you would never think to compare it to Mononoke. But since it's made by Goro Miyazaki, you have to, you know?
Well, and that's why I can see that. This is why you want to kill your dad in the first movie that you put out. Like, you're like, even if it's not going to be your masterpiece, you know, you're going up against Mononoke. If you can't beat it, then maybe like energetically, you know, kill him, like remove it. Like there's a literal killing of the king ritual at the beginning of this movie, which I think he was maybe trying to harness in the real world, right? Like he can't actually kill Papa Miyazaki, but he can definitely enact that. And like we mentioned that people talk about how spells and spelling and words are magic and all that. I mean, that's literally the premise of this movie, is that words are magic. But I would make the argument that if a picture is worth 1,000 words, then an animator drawing the same picture over and over again, thousands of times, is an even more powerful spell than anything that you could say or write. So him actually having an illustration of the king kill ritual as his sort of like breakout, I think that there's something deep and dark about that.
Yeah, maybe like he was like, this is the only way I can do it. Because I mean, come on, he cannot match his dad at what dad does. But he's probably like, I have my own skills. How do I finesse that? You know?
And he steals dad's pencil, but he can't use the pencil. He can't even take the freaking cap off the pencil, right? Or I guess a pen would make a better. In the movie, literally, it's a sword. He steals his dad's like magic sword, but he realizes that he can't even unsheath the damn sword because he's not powerful enough. This is him taking Papa Miyazaki's pen, and like he can't figure out how to take the cap off the pen, so he can't draw or write with it. But he still uses it to like bash people over the head with.
Yeah, see, that's where I'm like, if you made like a TV show about the making of this, you'd have something like Succession, right? People, I mean, this would be Succession level, you know, maneuvering and stuff, making a TV shows about the making of this film. That's why when we get to the Wind Rises, we got to watch. Sorry, just had the name here. The Kingdom of Dreams of Madness, which is a documentary about the making of that film, which basically goes outside the purview of just that film. So
this movie also has drugs in it. It has this weird substance called hazia.
Yeah. I wrote some notes about that, which apparently just kills you. It's like cyanide or something. Like crocodile again. I always like to bring up the crocodile, of course.
I don't know. I mean, it showed some of the people. The most obvious reference seemed like heroin. It seemed like it was some sort of a heroin kind of substance.
More black goo. Black
Oh,
tar.
black-
Excuse me, that's black tar.
Black. Okay, well, black. That, if you were to try and sell me black tar, I might be scared. But if you told me that, like, if you smoke this, it'll put nanobots into your body, then and that's what makes black goo fun. Is that at any point you could just be like, those are nanobots, and now this organic thing feels technical, and it feels like this weird thing that can bridge sort of old history with new sci-fi stuff. Only black goo kind of has that power.
What if I was like, hey man, I got Soma, the Brave New World version. You're taking the Soma, it makes you happy.
Not if you say it like that. No, I don't. I would not recommend that you personally become the drug dealer that like entices the first timers.
Hey man, you want some drugs? Should I get high?
Yeah, no, I don't think.
Well, I've never been a salesman. I can definitely tell you that.
And the drug pusher in this one wasn't that great either. Even though I could totally identify that Aaron was ready. Like Aaron absolutely could have been sold drugs that day. It's just that the drug dealer did not have the right pitch for him. But here's this kid that had just been trafficked and perhaps is about to be re-trafficked. He's kind of like the ultimate perfect customer for a drug dealer in the middle of a city. But somehow Sparrowhawk shows up in the middle of the second. And again, it's like, is this guy following this drug dealer around? Or is he just helping Aaron for some reason because he's got this magic sword?
Yeah. I guess Aaron's kind of having his own Pinocchio adventure here. You know, getting trafficked, running to the drug dealers.
Yeah, but Pinocchio didn't kill Geppetto.
Not yet. Pinocchio 2. Pinocchio's Revenge.
He just the cover. He's just sharpening his nose. Yeah.
Yeah. 15 more. No, actually, you can make that now, couldn't you? Everyone gets to make a Pinocchio movie. You don't have to wait for.
Oh, that could be so dark too. Like he tells Geppetto he loves him, and his nose grows and stabs him through the heart. So it's got like all this extra like beat you over the top of the head meaning to it.
There's a rabbit hole to go down. Figure out what the most existentially terrifying Pinocchio movie is, because there's so many. There's that one with Roberto Benigni. There's the weird one from the early 80s where I think Christopher Lloyd voices the villain or something. Like,
I imagine there could be a Saw version where like someone is slowly asking Pinocchio some horrific questions and he has to keep lying because admitting to them would make him like the worst thing ever, worse than Hitler. And you're kind of like sitting across the room and they just keep asking these questions over and over and the nose keeps getting closer and closer, almost like a swinging pendulum kind of story. But he's just going to poke your eye out at the end.
There's the 90s TV live action Pinocchio with Drew Carey and Brent Spiner. TV's Lieutenant Commander Data is a bank clerk that turns Geppetto down.
What? There's also a movie called Pinocchio's Revenge that I definitely recommend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. That's what I said. Someone already. I guess it's not the most creative idea to end up at.
It's actually, I'm pretty sure there's like a few different versions of it, but yeah, Pinocchio's Revenge is like a 90s movie where it doesn't look great, but the premise is so good that you can forgive so much of it.
I guess what's Tales of Earthsea being a Ghibli is just like too many things make sense in this movie. I mean, they're magical, they're fantastical, but they make sense, right? All the rules are clear, and it
has some good old classic like Western contradiction too. Like the morality stuff has a lot of contradiction. For example, as soon as Sparrowhawk saves Aaron from being trafficked, and he's like, hooray, you're free from slavery. Now go plow this field until you get blisters on your hands. Like it was literally like the very next thing that happens is like, I've released you from your chains. No longer you are a slave. I'm paraphrasing. And then they're plowing the field.
When you're paraphrasing, this is basically the same speech that Liam Neeson gives Batman in Batman Begins.
It's basically the same movie.
Yeah. So, although something we haven't talked about yet is Aaron's shadow self, which is like it following him.
So this is where maybe I reveal too much about my own weird sort of like self-reflection. Maybe this is coming from the Miyazaki debate. I don't know where this is coming from, but I swear at a certain point it felt like this movie was beating me over the head. Maybe it was just how feminine Cobb was, but that Aaron is at risk of becoming gay, essentially, or becoming abstinent, maybe, and he's never going to unsheath his sword. And the whole fight is that Cobb is the passive energy, the feminine passive that's like, come this way, come this way. And then Sparrowhawk's like, no, come this way. And in fact, I need proof of it. I need proof that you are going to be like an upstanding masculine male because you need to bang my daughter because my daughter mating with this, I guess, like magic sword wielding guy is the only way that my own immortality can live on, like my legacy. And the only version of immortality in this Western magic world is still just your legacy. So in order for Sparrowhawk to truly gain immortality, he needs someone to bang his daughter, who is, in this case, Artemis, or whatever her name was, Tartaria.
His horribly disfigured daughter.
Right. But and that's the whole entire premise of the movie, is that if Aaron goes the gay way with Cobb, right, and or becomes abstinent, or non-binary or whatever, then all of a sudden Sparrowhawk's legacy dies. It falls with Terran. And instead, he needs to make sure that this kid understands how to unsheath his sword. And he needs to understand what it is to do a hard day's work and get blisters on your hands and get calluses on your hands and be like that masculine energy Sparrowhawk thing instead of whatever the hell it is that Cobb's wanting to do. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm reading too much into this. Maybe I need to like take a break and start watching it tomorrow if I'm just like putting all of this onto this movie. And then as I was having that thought, Cobb lays Aaron down in his bedroom on his bed and he's like, here, drink from my cup, trust me. And he kind of was, it felt like the ultimate grooming session. Like Cobb was clearly in not just like a sexual way, in almost any interpretation, Cobb is literally grooming Aaron at this point, and he's clearly quite feminine. So that was the running theme that I felt just came out of freaking nowhere. And then everything else that Sparrowhawk had done up to that point, it all kind of clicked. It all made sense. It's like, oh, Sparrowhawk isn't like the good guy versus the bad guy. It's the masculine trad daddy that needs to lay down the law and teach your man how to be a boy, or your boy how to be a man, versus what society might do if I don't take this into my own hands. So like Cobb is society, and Cobb is just gonna like lie and turn you passive, and I don't know. So it felt like that was almost beating me over the head, though, that I didn't even have to read into that.
No, that this movie is not subtle in most ways, and it's just weird. The context of it is so funky, but it's in a way it's just not what you expect. You don't expect everything to be that, just like here is everything served to you. But sometimes that's nice, I guess. I guess the other movie for Disney, I was thinking that I guess it's a very different story, but just the vibes are a little Black Cauldron-y if we want to do a direct Disney comparison, which I never thought to do with other Ghiblis, but this one does make you be like, oh, this makes sense as a comparison with Western. You mentioned Lord of the Rings, and I could compare this with the animated one for sure.
Not familiar unless we're talking about the OG Hobbit.
I think that's also Basky or something, but yeah, I think they did the Hobbit, and they did one movie for all three Lord of the Rings, so it's kind of a jumbled mess.
So you are talking about like the vintage version, not like some remake.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I would compare this with the vintage version, but probably not with the newer ones because it's animation. But that, the Black Cauldron, this does have vibes from that. So in a way, it kind of goes back to some early 80s vibes, which Goro was born in 67, I think. So I guess those might have gotten in his crawl when he was a teenager or whatever, you know?
Okay, I mean, now I'm comparing this against like Don Bluth artwork, and I'm also thinking, man, Don Bluth also wins in that battle between Son Miyazaki and Don Bluth.
He does, but it seems to make a little more sense in that comparison. Like when I think of the way the characters look, I can definitely think of Don Bluth more than standard Ghibli, you know?
I see that. Again, I'm thinking the Bible Tales.
Right, or the Bible Tales, yeah, like you said. So the characters don't necessarily look that Ghibli. Like the designs are good, the animation's good, but they do have a different look. Not so many wrinkle lines in these characters, you know?
This one also, it had a few different characters that were like very utilitarian. It seemed like they just kind of like the entire opening sequence. We've got these guys on a boat and they're talking about there's this plague spreading through the land, and it almost felt like it was going to be a pandemic style movie, like it was going to be Utopia or something where everyone's coming down with this horrific sickness. And I guess maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention, but I didn't see where that ever amounted to anything. All of a sudden, we're in a completely different story where all we really care about is Aaron and maybe Taro or whatever her name was at the end of it. And I didn't for once think anything about it. In fact, there was one part where Taryn is like feeding a lamb. And I remembered, oh, didn't they say in the very beginning of this movie that it was like the thing had spread from lambs to people or people to lambs or something? It was affecting the livestock. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Like that whole pandemic thing hasn't come up. And the movie is well over a half into it now.
Guess they forgot about it.
Did they? I mean...
Maybe there's a much more apocalyptic movie going outside the confines of this movie. You know, if you go 50 miles that way, it's a big mess.
Okay, I didn't miss anything, right? Like they really do hammer in that there's this weird pandemic, and then Aaron kills his dad, and now we're just on Aaron's travels, and there's nothing like what happened to the old kingdom? What happened to the kingdom that's got the dead king? That, you know, who takes over? Because they're like, where is the prince? Well, that was the prince. The prince was the one that killed his dad and then ran away.
Right. Yeah. Once we run away, we don't go back, do we? So
and the king was the one that was trying to get to the bottom of this pandemic. So by Aaron killing the king, in theory, he allows this pandemic to spread, yet you don't see it at any point.
That's for another movie. But I will say, I'm looking through my notes here, and I don't think I latched onto that as much as you did, because I didn't make any notes about it.
Could this have been a translation thing? Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. I am getting to pretty much everything I said in my notes. I did think it was weird that when she sings her song, it's very J-pop sounding, that is a thing. I think Daddy could have loaned Joe Hayashi to do the music for this. I think that would have helped a whole lot. The music is a cut below the other Ghiblis we've seen.
I absolutely zoned out as soon as that started happening. My brain turned off, and then when it was over, I resumed watching the movie again. But yeah, this movie just out of nowhere kind of turns into a weird commercial that you'd see selling you like toothpaste in the middle of the night, it seems like.
Hey, middle of the afternoon in Japan. But yeah, that song, and then just the soundtrack in general, I mean, there's that dreamy quality to the Joe Hayashi stuff that is kind of unreplicatable. It would have helped make this feel more like a Ghibli if it had the composer. You know, it's just like how even with John Williams not as too old to be involved with Star Wars that much, they still have to keep using his themes, you know?
This was another Succession episode where it's like, Daddy, let me use the composer, and he's like, no, you have to do this first. Here's
this other guy. You haven't earned Joe yet.
That would sting, right? That would sting a little bit. Or is it the son like, no, I'm going to break away from Dad's formula and do my own thing?
That could be it as well. Maybe there's not enough detail to actually do that, like realistically, but it does seem like just a fascinating struggle that's in the movie and in the making of the movie. So that's kind of the amazing thing. This movie
it is crazy too to think that somewhere on a convergent timeline there is a Studio Ghibli version of this movie, right? Tale from Earthsea, that has everything that Mononoke and Ponyo and Howl's Moving Castle had in it as well, in terms of music, fidelity, surrealism, everything like that. It exists at least in concept somewhere, but it's not the one that we say.
And just to throw out, this was successful. Budget 22 million, box office 75.5 million. You know, that's pretty good. That's a triple multiplier. That's not a failure.
Do you think Ghibli can put out a movie that would be unprofitable? Do they? Is that something? Because there's like Disney can, aside from the recent Snow White, for maybe bad example, be Disney, but like even a bad movie can still sort of break even after a while. And even the ones that we count as losses, right? The ones that like fail, there's also some very creative accounting in the movie business. So even when we're like, oh my God, it was a catastrophic failure, very often like there was plenty of people that got rich off that movie and continue to receive residuals and everything else. It's just a matter of scale.
His second movie, not distributed by Disney, it made double its budget in Japan and triple its budget worldwide. Again, not an out-of-the-box success, but not bad. His third movie, Earwig and the Witch, flopped miserably, but we should note the release date was October 18th, 2020. So I think that one got a pandemic memory hold.
This movie would have been way better if they had kept up with it.
Oh yeah, but Earwig and the Witch seems like a pretty much forgotten movie at this point. Oh yeah, 842,744 in the U.S. box office. So that's 2020 for you.
Well, and you also mentioned that was CGI, so this was like the very first CGI Ghibli, or
right? That's correct.
Very first one. Okay.
Goro was running around saying, "I'm the only person at Ghibli who even knows how to do computer animation." Or at least 3D computer animation.
I believe that. There is a fairly popular video of, I believe it's Papa Miyazaki, dressing down some animators that had used some kind of software to do, like, I'm going to assume some kind of a tweening or some sort of a digital process in order to like facilitate their animation. And he's just like, this has no soul in it. You should be ashamed. Never show this kind of artwork to me ever again. This has no place in anything that we're doing here. Like, it's a very serious talk that I see often cited out of any kind of context to like make this point that Miyazaki is some sort of like an absolute purist.
Yeah, that might be in the Kingdom of Dreams and Madness documentary. So we'll see when we get there. Do you have anything else you want to throw out on this movie, or have we drained the sea?
I'd say give it a good chance, man. This movie I thought was interesting. It does beat you over the head a little bit, but it was cool to see the Ghibli treatment of something that was so un-Ghibli in a way. And if you like Bible Tales, it's just like an upgrade from Bible Tales.
Upgraded Bible Tales. There we go.
There you go. There's the full selling pitch.
How about our pitches? What's going on? I guess we'll just say this summer, considering how release schedules work out.
As always, I've just got a million different projects going on. The big ones, you can always go to illuminaticomic.com for the biggest release to date, and then hopefully the ones following after that are titaniccomic.com, which is a comic book about the Titanic. Surprise. One called doesbigfootexist.com, which is another chick tract style pamphlet that breaks down every regional and historical version of Bigfoot, from the most conventional to homeless Bigfoot to interdimensional psychic Bigfoot to biblical Bigfoot and Harry Mary. And if you never heard of Harry Mary before, I envy you, because it's the weirdest thing to learn about for the first time. And then satanicpaniccomic.com, which you can probably guess what that one is also about, something that that me and you lived through in the 80s and 90s. And this pamphlet would argue that it has been going on for hundreds of years, that as soon as there was a white person in America, Satanism was here and the Satanic Panic was here. So I've got an entire chick tract style comic book that lays all that out.
All right. Over on this end, I do a lot of podcasting on media at podcastios.org. It's also that on Patreon, and we're just finishing up a bunch of stuff. Just before you and I got on, I finished for podcast 1999, the final live action Planet of the Apes episode. And let's be real, I just watched 14 episodes of that. It was interesting. Tales from Earthsea is probably better in the Planet of the Apes live action series, just to keep things in perspective. But it's interesting, worth a listen. Just finishing up a rundown of the complete original Twilight Zone. I only have to record the last episode of the Twilight Zone for Time Enough podcast, and then we're going to be going to other Twilight Zones, other anthologies. So that one keeps on running. And I mentioned Films and Filth a little bit, where we look at really good movies and really bad movies as rated by IMDb users. So come check that out. Okay, time to set off to sea. Get smashed by a dragon.
American stickers, cryptids, cults, and killers. We got all your favorite conspiracies, all the land and more on our sticker sheets. Paranoid American stickers, they'll make you smile and snicker. False flags and secret societies, all of these and more on our sticker sheets.
Explore the unique with Paranoid American sticker sheets. Unearth tales of cryptids, cults, and mysteries through each sticker. These won't last long. Get yours now at paranoidamerican.com.
All American stickers, cryptids, cults, and killers. We got all your favorite conspiracies, all of that and more on our sticker sheets. Paranoid American stickers, they'll make you smile and snicker. False flags and secret societies, all of these and more on our sticker sheets.
What the heck are you waiting for? Discover the extraordinary with Paranoid American sticker sheets. From cryptids in the night to cults out of sight, each sticker is a unique find. Get yours now at paranoidamerican.com.
Paranoid. Yo. I scribble my life away, driven to write the page. Will it enlighten your brain? Give you the flight, my plane. Paper, the highs ablaze. Somewhat of an amazing feel when it's real to real. You will engage it. Your favorite, of course, the Lord of an arrangement. I gave you the proper results to hit the pavement. If they get emotional, hate, maybe your language, a game, how they playing it well without Lakers. Evade them, whatever the cost, they are the shapeshift. Snakes get decapitated, met is the apex. Execution of flame you out, nuclear bomb distributed at war, rather gruesome for eyes to see. Max them out, then I light my trees. Blow it off in the face, you're despising me for what though? Calculated and rather cutthroat. Paranoid American must be all the blunt smoke for real. Lord, give me a day away, vacate. They wait around to hate whatever they say. Matters not in the least bit. We get heavy rotate when a beat hits, so thank us, you're welcome. Fuck the niggas for real, you're welcome. They ain't never had a deal, you're welcome. Man, they lacking appeal, you're welcome. Yet they doing it still, you're welcome.